The sound of the guard captain's horn echoes throughout the barracks. Yet another uncomfortable night on a straw mattress under an itchy woolen blanket. Sharing a room full of people who snore loudly didn't help much either. You stretch enthusiastically, ready to face the day as a castle guard. There's no time for a comfortable morning routine or a proper breakfast, so you make your way to the kitchen to finish off some leftover bread from the day before. Breakfast would be simple and usually wouldn't be hot. Coarse bread, most often made from rye or barley, would be dipped in ale. Oats boiled in water or pottage were common in certain kitchens, and even a piece of salted pork or dried beans, if you were lucky. But in this castle, the Lord doesn't like to spend money, especially not on guards serving a term of service as taxes for living on his land. After a severely disappointing breakfast, you make your way through the castle to the armoury to pick up your issued gear for the day. A cold wind is constantly blowing through the rooms, but knowing you have no choice but to be here, you prepare your things. Certain castles have their own permanent garrison of professional soldiers, who often have set uniforms and carry the same weapons. This shows a level of prestige and power for the Lord, but it is also very expensive and often unnecessary. In this castle, the only clothing provided is a tunic made from wool and some thin leather boots. The Lord is responsible for arming and equipping the guards, but that doesn't mean he spends as much as he should on it. Your standard gear for the day includes only a few items. First over the tunic goes the gambeson, a padded shirt that stops any armour from rubbing or pinching, and also acts as a buffer against its weight. Next is a chainmail shirt, made from thousands of linked circles of wrought iron. From the 1300s onwards, steel replaced iron in most chainmail after advancements in metallurgy made it possible to work with such thin strands of steel. Different types of chainmail had different names, such as the hauberk, which was a knee-length coat of mail, often with sleeves, or a byrnie, a short coat of mail that didn't go below the waist. Next are leather gloves and a belt to keep it all together. Castles would often have an overtunic for guards to wear on the outside of their armour. This would not only display the Lord's coat of arms or crest, but also stop the sun from directly heating the metal armour during the summer. The last piece is the helmet, itchy, uncomfortable, and smells faintly of the last person who wore it, but it's part of the uniform. The elaborate helms were reserved for the permanent castle garrison or people of wealth. A simple iron or steel helm, like this kettle hat, would be provided for a watchguard. The duties of a castle guard would depend on where you're stationed. Wall duty would involve scanning the horizon and looking for anything suspicious, and making sure there were no fights within the castle bailey, the central courtyard area within the main walls. Gate duty would involve checking people for weapons or any banned items. Then there was patrol duty, walking from one point to another and then back again for the entire shift. Any guard found asleep at his post during active duty would be severely punished. A lord or guard captain was well within their rights to execute anyone found asleep on duty, and at the very least, you would be beaten, fined, imprisoned, or even kicked off the Lord's land. Shifts weren't usually more than 4 hours at night, and up to 12 hours during the day, or even longer, depending on manpower. There was no lunch break, though eating on shift during quiet times was often allowed. If you wanted to eat something on duty, you would have to supply it yourself. You check your pouch, bread, hard cheese, a strip of dried meat. It will have to do. Fresh food doesn't keep well in a castle without refrigeration. Anything soft spoils quickly, and salted food needs to be soaked for hours before it's safe to eat. Your post for the day is on the eastern wall of the castle, overlooking a small woodland and a few dirt paths in the distance. The real enemy of guard duty is boredom and feeling tired. Some of the other guards like to play dice or talk to each other during shift, but you don't want to risk it, especially since you're only a conscripted peasant doing a term of service as taxes, which makes you an expense and not one of the valued, trained soldiers of the permanent castle garrison. Suddenly, the bell above the gatehouse rings. Only 3 chimes means all available guards should come to assist. Better than the constant ringing, which means a major threat to the castle itself. As a watchguard at a set post, you aren't on the list to respond and watch curiously as several soldiers run across the courtyard. Your view is blocked by the gatehouse tower, and you listen to the muffled sounds of several people all shouting at once. A short while later, a man is dragged into the courtyard and thrown in front of the guard captain. You watch them talking from a distance before the soldiers throw the man out of the main gates. No idea what that was about, but things like this happen from time to time in this castle, and it's normally the most exciting thing you'll see. Feeling the occasional biting cold of the wind actually helps you stay awake, but your shift doesn't end until someone turns up to replace you. Timekeeping in a castle was often done by the castle's chapel bells ringing to mark certain times or events of the day. Some castles would have a crier or a guard captain shouting out shift changes or instructions, but as far as you're concerned, you are pretty sure the end of your shift must be near. Even though you're almost off duty, another duty calls, and you shout down to the guard captain in the bailey to ask permission to go to the garderobe, also known as a privy. Castle toilets were often just a hole that led down to the outside of the castle walls. Clothes were often hung in these small rooms because people found out that the ammonia smell from the sewage kept moths away. It would stop them from eating your clothes, but would come with the unwanted smell often associated with toilets that can't be flushed. Even though your position in the castle is cold, uncomfortable, low pay and has terrible food, you're still glad you weren't conscripted as a gong farmer, the guy who walks around with a wheelbarrow and spade all day removing the piles that form beneath the toilet outlets. During the last part of your shift, you watch the sunset on the horizon, knowing the night guards would surely come to relieve you soon. You watch knights and soldiers of the permanent garrison already enjoying their free time in the bailey, sharing cups of mead and eating bread that doesn't look anywhere near as rough as what you've been getting. After leaning on your spear for what you guess is probably about an hour, another guard finally shows up and relieves you for the day. As a day guard in a castle during times of peace, there's little chance of being called up for duty again before your planned shift tomorrow, so what's left of the day is yours. Leaving your post, you notice smoke and the smell of fresh stew billowing out of the castle's main kitchen, and the Lord's Hall is filled with guests and the faint sounds of a lute playing in the background. As much as you'd like to go inside and join in, the Lord's Hall is no place for a conscripted peasant guard. Only knights and some of the more favoured permanently garrisoned soldiers are allowed inside. You make your way back to the barracks to spend the evening. Some of the other guards on the same shift have already left for the nearby village, hoping their wives have cooked something decent to eat. Even though it would be nice to go back to a proper home and a meal in the evening, it's too risky to sleep in and miss guard duty the next day. For you, it's another evening in the barracks with the other guards who either have homes too far away or don't have anywhere to go at all. You leave your gear in the armoury and sit down at one of the tables in your freezing cold room. Fireplaces in castles were often expensive and difficult to build, and were often reserved for the chambers of important people or obvious places like kitchens and communal halls. The only heating a guard like you can hope for is a brazier, an iron stand with a bowl on top to make a small fire in. The smoke stays in the room and either escapes through the floor into the room above or fills the room until it can escape out of the window. Braziers could be more trouble than they were worth and made little difference in a freezing stone room. The rest of the evening is spent playing dice and Nine Man's Morris, an easy-to-learn board game popular among regular folk. Someone shares a few pieces of leftover cheese while another pours everyone a cup of ale. One good thing about being a guard is that the ale, even though weak and funny tasting, has a very high ration allowance. Small beer was the term given to weak ale and was made to make it safe to drink. Water would quickly go stagnant and bad, but small beer had just enough alcohol to kill most bacteria, and remained safer to drink for longer than water stored in the same container. You leave the others at the table and head over to a straw mattress you hope doesn't poke you as much as it did last night. The sounds of the other guards still awake are something you just have to deal with, and you climb into bed in the same tunic you woke up in and wore all day. A rat is trying its luck near the door, but you've seen so many that as long as they don't crawl on you, you won't stomp them. Trying to get enough sleep so you don't feel tired on guard duty is better than another game of dice with the others, so you close your eyes and wait until you stop shivering before finally drifting off. Tomorrow, another day awaits. Perhaps some excitement will fill the day, like a group of bandits in the area or a fist fight in the bailey, but your hopes aren't high. Perhaps tomorrow you'll be patrolling outside the walls and can at least walk around, but that won't change the food, clothing, or the fact you have to do this every day for another 2 months, or until something finally happens.